From the previous video, we have learned about minerals, and how we classify them. In this video, we will examine rocks. Rocks have been formed through different processes. They are almost everywhere on the planet. Rocks, generally, are defined as any solid mass of mineral occurring naturally on the planet. There are three types of rocks: igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, metamorphic rocks. Igneous rocks are formed from crystallization of molten magma and lava. Magma is the term used to describe the molten rocks underneath the surface. Lava, on the other hand, describes the molten rocks that reached the surface of the earth. Sedimentary rocks are formed from the weathered products of pre-existing rocks that have been transported, deposited, compacted, and cemented. There are two ways of forming sedimentary rocks. Each depends on the type of weathering that have acted on the parent rock. We will examine weathering in the next module. Metamorphic rocks are formed from recrystallization of pre-existing rocks, like igneous or sedimentary rocks. There are three agents of metamorphism: heat, pressure, hydrothermal solutions. The interrelationships between the rocks is shown in the rock cycle. This rock cycle, shown here, shows the three main types of rocks, which overlap with each other. The areas where two types of rocks overlap represent significant processes that drive their formation. The formation sedimentary rocks from igneous rocks passes through the internal processes. This internal processes proceeds from weathering of the parent rock. Erosion of the weathered particles follow. Then, they are deposited. Eventually, they become layered and squeezed as time goes by. Cementation joins together these weathered parts into a new rock. When atoms inside a sedimentary rock reorganizes, or recrystallizes, due to elevated temperature or pressure, the rock undergoes metamorphism. Metamorphism, however, does not melt the rock. If the rock is melted and cooled, it would become an igneous rock again. Now let us go deeper into igneous rocks. Igneous rocks form generally through cooling of molten rocks. However, they come in different categories: intrusive igneous rocks, extrusive igneous rocks. Intrusive igneous rocks form when the molten material cooled underneath the surface of the earth. The picture shows an example of an intrusive igneous rock. Extrusive igneous rocks form when the molten material was ejected and cooled over the surface of the earth. The picture shows an example of an extrusive igneous rock. Igneous rocks are also classified through texture. 4 different rocks types have been determined. We have coarse-grained rocks, fine-grained rocks, glassy rocks, and porphyritic rocks. The example shown here is a coarse-grained igneous rock. It is called granite. This one is called basalt. This is a fine-grained igneous rock. The glassy textured igneous rock shown here is called obsidian. When a rock has different textures, or a combination of them, in it, then it is called porphyritic. This one is an example. Igneous rocks may also be classified through composition. 4 categories have also been determined: granitic rocks, basaltic rocks, ultramorphic rocks, and andesitic rocks. Granitic rocks show light-colored rocks, like this one shown here. Basaltic rocks, unlike granitic rocks, show dark-colored rocks, like this one shown here. Ultramorphic igneous rocks contain less silicate, usually not exceeding 45%. This picture shows an ultramorphic igneous rock. Andesite is an extrusive rock intermediate in composition between rhyolite and basalt. The picture shows an example of it. As mentioned earlier, sedimentary rocks are formed through the internal processes of the planet. 2 categories of sedimentary rocks have been established. These categories differ significantly on the type of weathering of the parent material did undertake. Clastic sedimentary rocks form from cementation of fragmented parent rocks. Hence, we can deduce that physical, or mechanical, weathering led the formation of this type of rock. In the picture, you may notice the different fragments of the parent material. This rock is commonly known as conglomerate. Chemical sedimentary rocks form from precipitation of dissolved rock particles. Water is the main agent in dissolving the parent rocks. In the picture, you will not notice any fragment of the parent rock. This is because of the tiny dissolved particles that have precipitated during sedimentation. Stalactites and stalagmites are another common forms of chemical sedimentary rocks. The one shown here is limestone. Metamorphic rocks form in two ways. Contact metamorphism applies elevated temperatures to recrystallize the pre-existing. Regional metamorphism applies elevated pressures to recrystallize the pre-existing. Mountain building generally forms regional metamorphism. Two types of metamorphic rocks exist: foliated metamorphic rocks and non-foliated metamorphic rocks. When a metamorphic rock has bends, or strips of color layers, then it is a foliated metamorphic rock. This is gneiss, a foliated metamorphic rock. This is marble, a non-foliated metamorphic rock, because of the absence of bands, or strips of color layers.